Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Keys. This evening, we will speak on a very delicate topic, physical and sexual abuse of children. Unfortunately, this seems more prevalent and alarming than ever. We hear the statement, "Oh, too often. Had I known, I would have intervened." Our guests will share their experiences and advice on how to recognize abusers and pedophiles, telltale signs of abused child, ways in which abuse can be prevented, and what to do if abuse is discovered. It is my hope that any victims listening will find their voices and become free, also making their abusers known. On the panel is mental health therapist Jenna Christie, also Tennille and Valentino Martin. Thank you all so much for being on this call. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about abuse in the Bahamas, both sexual and physical abuse.
All right, I guess I'll start. Hi, thanks for having me. Uh, Sexual abuse and physical abuse is far often too prevalent in our country, but I think the most disturbing part about understanding physical and sexual abuse is that we will never truly understand what the real numbers are. We produce a lot of statistics which indicate that maybe 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 5 women experience this, or 1 out of 10 children experience that. But those are usually only the reported cases, the verified cases. We don't know the real number, the real prevalence rates of these incidents because so many go unreported. We do know that a lot of the children who enter into the social services system, they come having experienced some type of trauma from one of these or more abuses. And when you compound that, you have what we call complex trauma, which is from multiple types of abuse or from the same abuse being sustained over a significant length of time. And then you have situations where they are exposed to violence in the home, where maybe they didn't exactly experience it physically or firsthand, but they witnessed it, which also has traumatic effects. So the understanding sexual abuse and physical abuse isn't just understanding who experiences it, but also who's exposed to it just through witnessing other people.
Wow, thank you so much. So what are some of the telltale signs or indications that we should look out for to know if a child is being abused?
Every child is different. So it really starts with knowing what are the more common behaviors that the child exhibits and how that has changed. Some of the changes you'll see is maybe violence or anger, angry outbursts. A child might be secluded. They might self-isolate, or they might start to engage in self-harm. One that is really overlooked, especially as it pertains to sexual abuse, is bedwetting. Children who have been previously potty trained, all of a sudden now they're wetting the bed. That's usually one of the indicators. Children who no longer want to be touched, maybe you're used to giving them a hug, and they shy away from you, they gesture away, or they show that they're really uncomfortable around even particular people. That's another indicator. Appetite changes. Your child, most people know children love to eat you out of the house. And now all of a sudden, I can't get my child to eat any of their favorite foods. They no longer have any interest in any of their favorite activities. Maybe they used to play sports and now they don't care. They had a favorite TV show, now they don't care to watch it. all of these behavioral changes occur for a reason. Behavioral change never just springs up out of nowhere. There's always a reason behind it. But these are some indicators that something could definitely be wrong.
So is it safe to say, I know a lot of parents say, oh, this child is just being rude. Oh, they're acting out. They want to have their own way. I don't know what happened all of a sudden, but they just misbehaving. They don't want to listen to anything I have to say. They want to have their own way. Is that also an indicator of sexual or physical abuse?
It definitely can be. And I think because we don't understand it or we don't know exactly what the problem is, sometimes parents, uh, that's the furthest thing from their mind. They're thinking, well, I know my child, I know what happens, I know situations that they encounter. So that's one of the last things they would ever think about. So it's very easy to blame the child and say that they are no manners, no kind of brought up. See, but the fact of the matter is that there is a reason, whether it's, psychiatric or environmental, nature versus nurture, whatever you want to call it, there's always a reason. So rather than the first offense just being, oh, they're so rude, or why they acting so womanish, or they think they man, we really need to take the time to hear them out. And part of that problem is that, as a culture, as a society, we tend to believe that, children are to be seen and not heard. Children should know their place. So we really do not offer the freedom for a child to say, this is bothering me, someone is bothering me, this is a problem. And on top of that, we tend to look at when they act out, okay, we need to figure out what's going on with that child, but we don't really take the time to figure out where the problems lie. In school, they taught us when we were going through learning children's behaviors, they taught us that children tend to act out in the environments in which they feel the safest. So a child with a lot of behavioral problems in school, you might want to see what's going on in the home. And if there are problems in the home, maybe there are some difficulties in school or in other environments where the children are, because they tend to act out where they know they might be safe. And if a child is afraid of constantly being beaten by their parents in the home, uh, then the odds of them acting out at home going to be slim. They're going to probably try to be as invisible as possible. So these are all the different dynamics that just show that children's behaviors are so complex, and we really need to avoid, as a culture, as a society, dismissing what we see based upon what we think the situation is.
Wow, that was a powerful statement you just made. I never knew that children act out where they feel the safest. So basically, when teachers or church members or whomever sees that child misbehaving or displaying in a bad manner, they should actually be pulling that child aside to see what's going on.
Mhm.
Wow.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. I think a lot of times we don't think about that. It just kind of look like, well, why? Where this is not the child that I'm used to seeing. Something is triggering this behavioral change. And especially when it comes to kids who do not have the voice, sometimes it's not only the fact that they're scared to speak. Sometimes it's, I don't even have the vocabulary. We notice with a lot of younger children who maybe they've been neglected in the home. So they have learning disabilities or cognitive delays, and they can't articulate exactly how they feel. It's very common for the behaviors to speak for them. Look at, normal development of a child. They're going to act out and tell you that they're upset before they learn the words to say, I am upset. And it's the exact same thing when you're dealing with children who have been abused or experienced or witnessed abuse.
Wow. So, what are some questions that you would suggest be asked to these children, whether you feel they may be abused or, just for sake of safety? because you may not see the child acting out, just yet. But, just to really know where your child is, or say you do see your child acting out, or you do see your student acting out, or one of your Sunday school kids acting out. What are some of the questions that you would suggest that an adult asks that child?
Well, definitely one of the first questions, be like, hey, is everything okay? That's usually one of the biggest starters. I've noticed that, this change has happened and you state whatever the change is. And I know that's not normally like you. So I just wanted to know if everything was okay, or is there any way that I can help? Because I don't really like what I see. Depending upon the situation, depending upon what the child is actually exhibiting, you can ask them questions like, so are you ready to go home yet? Or would you like to stay a little bit longer? Questions like that that do not directly relate to them telling you what the problem is can give you a sense, because kids who don't want to go home will often try to find reasons to not go home. Kids who don't really want to go to school, they'll find reasons. So if you find out the child's interest level in other things, so for example, if you're having problems in the school, uh, so they're acting out in school, be like, okay, what is it about school that has you so upset? So it's not necessarily that you're saying, tell me what's wrong. You're saying, let's find a solution together, but I can't figure out what the solution is if I don't know what the problem is. So when you let them know that you see something, it's very important also to let them know that you're a safe person for them to confide in. And when they confide in you, whatever you said to get them to confide in you, you have to uphold it. You see, so sometimes we tend to say, well, you could always trust me, everything's going to be okay. And then when they give you something, maybe we disappear because they've unloaded too much on us and we don't know how to act. So that is a way that gets children sometimes to shut back down, and they're not going to open up. So when you open up that door, you have to be able to be consistent as a support system for that child. It's very important to know that you're not just asking just because it sounds good, but it's because you genuinely want to help. Because if a child does in fact open up to you and you're not mentally or readily prepared to handle what it is that they say, and they lose you as a support system, you actually could have done more harm than good.
Wow. So would you suggest that an adult calls another trusted adult, or maybe a counselor, if they aren't sure that they're ready to take all of that in?
Definitely. No one says you have to come in with, the cape on and you have to come in and save the day. Notifying someone that this could be a problem is more than enough. You can do that. We have, anonymous tip lines. We have other people, colleagues, or you might be connected with other persons whom, can really be there for that child. And it's good for everyone, for the adults in that child's life to communicate, because you may see one thing, someone else may see something else. But by the time everyone has a discussion, you get a whole picture. And that's what we want to see, because our vantage points are often very limited. But we want to be able to say, okay, let's network so the child can begin to see how big of a support system, because usually children in these situations feel very alone. They feel very isolated, whether it's by themselves, but they've done the self-isolation, or they feel like they're kind of being ostracized. So it shows that there's a network available for them and to them, that, hey, maybe if I can't talk to you about this particular situation, you still cared enough to get me the help I needed.
Okay, thank you so much for that. That is definitely a whole lot of information that I'm going to use. And I hope that, persons who are listening, they'll find that useful as well, because, you hear it a lot. Oh, I didn't know the child wanted to stay with me. They never wanted to go home. They always found something to do, and I guess it wouldn't dawn on you that this is a problem. This is actually a red flag that the child is showing you, but they aren't finding the words or the braveness to actually come forward and say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. I need your help.
Mhm.
Another
Definitely.
another question, because I noticed, I've been following a lot of cases, even in the US. And when I think back, even as a child, a lot of instances that family members would have say, go and hug this person, or go and give this person a kiss, or you and tell this person hi, or or you have an adult who would have a child sitting on their lap, or maybe even calling that child their husband or their wife. These were all flags that seem to have gotten missed. So my question to you is, what are some of the telltale signs of abusers or pedophiles?
Okay, well, before I answer that, I think it's really important to understand the distinction between a sexual predator and a pedophile, because we tend to use those terms interchangeably, but they're actually two distinct profiles. A sexual predator will violate anybody. They do not have to have a physical attraction to a child, a prepubescent individual. It's anger, it's driven by rage, it's driven by power and domination. So a sexual predator doesn't care if it's a child or if it's a 99-year-old woman or man, versus a pedophile who has a physical, a intimate sexual attraction towards those who are prepubescent, towards children. So understanding that profile, they will get close to children. They will find ways to be around them. These are usually the ones who you find out years later, they've abused a lot of children through the church, through the ministry, through youth groups, through schools. They find ways to get to who it is that they want to be around. Okay, so some of the signs that you're talking about definitely is, you mentioned some of them already. Come give me a hug, but you're forcing yourself upon a child. A child should be able to say, I don't want you to touch me. A child should be able to understand from an early age, this is my body, and I can consent to hugging you or not. Some of the ones that you see are those who like to groom, what we call grooming a child or an individual. And those are usually they are overburdening with compliments. You're so beautiful. You're so pretty. Oh, wow. I know you have the boys all over you. Oh, I know you're such a ladies' man, because we don't want to forget women can be predators too. Women can be pedophiles too. So we want to make sure that we don't just only go towards the man, that this happens in both genders. You'll have those who, let me throw gifts at you. I'm just going to shower you with all types of gifts, buying cell phones, buying jewelry. And these are ways to get you to say, I care about you. I want you to have the finest things. So that's part of the grooming. And what you'll also see is part of the isolation. Maybe they're spending more and more time together. So if you're at a family function and you have that weird uncle or that weird auntie that you're just not quite so sure about, going off on in the corner with the young niece, with your little sister, with your little brother. And it's strange because they always find ways to be alone with the person. They engage in inappropriate conversations with them. These are all things that are very subtle, but you want to make sure that you watch out for.
Wow. And I'm pretty sure, persons listening, they can relate. Because even as you speak, I can remember a few instances like that, be it a family function or even going to a friend's house, or, so on and so forth. But these things or these actions, they are overlooked so much. because the persons, they're able to just find their way amongst everyone else and kind of go a little hidden,
Mhm.
so it's good that you would have mentioned those signs, and hopefully parents, guardians, whomever it is, family members, neighbors, they're able to look out for these and monitor those persons a little closely, a little bit more close than they would have anyone else because of the signs that you just mentioned. So for parents, I know outside of the signs, what would you suggest that they do to help prevent their children from becoming victims?
I think one of the biggest things that we need to make sure is that as families, we talk about healthy relationships. And it's really difficult because unfortunately, a lot of adults don't even know what healthy relationships are. But one of the key things I say is if a person comes to you and they say, don't tell so and so, that should be your ultimate red flag. Because if the relationship is well intentioned, there would be no reason for me to share the details of it. So those are one of the biggest things. And then also letting children know the actual names for their body parts. We don't want to use the scientific names or the medical names for our anatomy, but we need to not call our genitals by the cookie or these pet names that can be used in other contexts where if a child comes to say something, it could be misconstrued as, what is it that you're talking about? We need to be clear. We need to tell our children, this is what your body parts are. These are your private areas. These are the times when anybody should touch, and those should be very minimal. When mommy comes to bathe you, or daddy's bathing you, Grammy's bathing you, but these are the trusted people who are allowed to touch you, and these are the ways in which they are. When you go to a doctor, any other time you don't. And then you have to teach them what the threats are, teaching them how one of the biggest things that a lot of children sometimes are told is if you tell anybody, I'm going to kill your mommy. If you tell anybody, I'm going to kill your daddy. And that is what it strikes fear in them. And we have to teach our children to watch out for a lot of these warning signs, that these are situations that can get really out of hand if they believe them. And when children come to us and say something happens, we have to believe them. We have to believe them, because even if it comes out to be unfounded for whatever reason, God forbid an actual situation occurs and you think it's the boy who cried wolf. So we really want to be able to show our kids what is appropriate and what isn't.
Thank you so much for that. And that's so true. You hear it quite often. And I don't know, maybe you can help me to understand this, right? I've always wondered why, if a child goes to their parent or a guardian, why are they shunned? Why are they called a liar? Is it because that person doesn't know how to receive it? Is it that they don't want to face what is really happening, the possibilities? What is the reasoning behind that response? Because it's not normal.
Man, all of the above, all of the above. You have some people, and that's nail on the head, they just can't receive it. They don't want to receive it. There's a, what do you mean? This person who I've known for 3-4 decades, how could they have done this? And sometimes you have parents who it's not necessarily that they don't believe it, but they're in denial that they could have allowed it to happen. So then they don't want to look at it. They don't want to think about it. They said, you don't know what you're talking about. Some don't want to deal with embarrassment, the family embarrassment, the public embarrassment that this occurred to them. Sometimes they're dealing with their own demons where it happened to them too, and maybe they didn't know. Nobody knew about it. maybe no one believed them. And so it's part of their own level of denial too. Then you also have situations where maybe the abuser is the primary breadwinner. Maybe now you're looking at the situation where if the moneymaker goes, what's going to happen to us? What is going to happen? And then you have a situation where now I'm caught between believing my child and the person who pays the bills and puts the food on the table. So then that's a whole nother dilemma. That's a whole nother dynamic. And then there's the component of the guilt that is within themselves, that how could this have happened? So there are so many reasons why people may sweep these incidents under the rug and say, just deal with it. And like I said, sometimes they're hurt themselves and they don't know how to process. You know, so I've had a parent before that said, well, it happened to me and I'm fine. She'll be okay too. Wow. And it was heartbreaking because maybe had the mother gotten the help that they needed, they would have been able to possibly intervene early or prevent certain things. Another part of that is when abuse happens and you have situations where they don't get help, they end up being in negative adult relationships themselves.
Wow. So unfortunately, that cycle just continues. It just goes on and on and on. No one's helping the other person because they never got the help. Or like you said, if I went through it, what's the big deal if you're going through it?
Yep.
That's so unfortunate. So what do you do if you discover that that child is abused? Do you just go straight to the police? What do you do?
My biggest advice to people, is you can call, excuse me. You can call the police. Social services has the hotline and you can call them. I urge, do not call other family members. I think sometimes that tends to be so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that, and then it causes mass chaos. Call the appropriate authorities as soon as possible. And I say that because if there's any bodily evidence that could be used in a case, you don't want to lose it. You don't want to lose it. So notify the enforcement, call the child abuse hotline, contact social services. You can make anonymous reports if you don't really want to get involved, if you're not a parent, but you see something that is concerning, you can call them, make an anonymous tip, say, hey, I think someone needs to do a child welfare check. This is what I saw. This is what I'm concerned about. I think this is something that you need to follow up with, and they will do it.
All righty, so you heard it loud and clear. If you discover a child is abused, whether it's physically or sexually, you're not going to call a family member. You're not going to call up a friend. You're going to call the police. You're going to call social services. You're going to call the abuse hotline to help that child. Because you don't want to make any chaos or things any worse than it needs to be.
All right. Just to chime in, to give the number, the hotline number is 322-2763 or 422-2763. Once again, it's 322-2763 or 422-2763. They are 24 hours.
Thank you so much. So you got the call, you got the information on what to do, and you have the number to call. So please use it, use it, use it. Thank you so much, Miss Christie. I know that we've had the Martins on. I don't know if they're ready to chime in on this
Yes.
conversation.
How are you doing? Yes, I guess we just
Awesome.
wanted to, once we've done, I want to share my story.
Okay,
Do we have time?
we do.
Awesome. I was about 9 years old, just going into a new school. It was my uncle, my daddy's brother. I'll never forget it because it's my memory has, from since that happened, my memory has been so, I guess, say lapse. I only could remember majority of my life now. I only could remember bad things. To say I have, like to say, maybe one or two occasions I can remember good things happening in my life from that situation that happened. I just slept by my younger cousin. I can remember what I was wearing. It's so prevalent that I could relive it today. It happened in my aunt's room with my other cousin there, but he did it so that she didn't see that he did it. So when the question was asked, what happened or what transpired, she was like, she didn't see anything. So that was one issue. I encourage parents to speak to their children about sexual abuse. I did not know nothing about anything about sexual abuse, nothing, at 9 years old. How I found out, it was at a summer school at church, and they started speaking about good touch and bad touch. And I was like, that happened to me, oblivious to what happened. And that was like weeks prior to what happened. I ran out of the room crying. I went to the phone to call my mother, and I just could not tell her at all, could not, scared. Days went by. I told my younger brother, and he then in turn told my parents. So when he told them what I told them, they called me, they spoke with me. Keep in mind, my uncle was living right next door to me, basically. He was living on the island, but when he came over, he was there. They asked me what happened, I explained everything. They called him from next door and said, well, this is what she's saying. What is happening? What is going on? He looked me straight in my eye. I am her uncle. I would never do nothing like that. And just ran on. And I think that even hurt worse to know that he said, I'm not doing nothing. It's lying. So they told me to go in the room. I don't know, the conversation with them lingered for, however, it felt like forever to me. They came, they spoke with me after, but it just didn't feel resolved, kind of thing. It's just like nothing, only was a conversation, nothing transpired. Since then, I became very, like how Miss Christie was saying, I became very angry. I was very upset. I became very timid to tell anybody anything. I became a walking target, basically. I had other family members after that. Nothing was really done to him. Nothing was done. I had my aunt, when I got my hair done, yucking up my hair, you's a fresh little girl. Listen to me. It was horrible. Why? You's a fresh, come, let me fix your hair. Why? And just roughing me up because I said what your brother did. I became exiled from the family, so to speak, so much so that I just didn't want to be around my family, basically. After 16, I moved in with my auntie and never had a boyfriend. 16, 17, 18, 19, found a boyfriend. 20. Guess what kind of boyfriend I found? An abuser. So it when someone doesn't help you, when you cry for help, it destroys you. It mentally, emotionally it destroys you. I was in a abusive relationship for maybe 2 to 3 years until I decided I I did nothing wrong. I don't need to be in this kind of situation. And I just left that situation. But parents need to listen to their children. I don't listen to me. I always tell person I rather lose family members than to lose my children. I wasn't talking to my parents for a while, a good while. It took me a while to get over that. Because even if they called the police or called, like how Miss Christie said, social services, and they investigated, because sexual abuse is really hard, depending on the abuse. It's really hard to, I get to determine. But if they did that step, I think I'd be in a better place. At least they try to make something happen. So that in itself would eat at me emotionally, physically. I even tried suicide at 13. I tried to drown myself in the tub. It was a lot. It was a lot to talk about. It's even still hard. It is hard to know that people can help you. It's like I have both parents can help you and they don't. And that's how I felt. And feeling that people whispering around you as a child, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard. It makes you resentful, it makes you hateful, it makes you it's just bitter. One of my other family members, because when nothing is done, other people believe they can do things to you. One of my other family members asked me to touch myself and let him show me. To this day, you besides my husband, you probably, you and everybody else who would be watching would be the only persons who know that to this day. Why tell someone what's going on with you when they did nothing prior? It makes no sense. I slept by one of my friends. I'll never forget this. I became literally a walking target for sexual abuse. My friend, I slept by her. She was my only friend at the time. And I'll never forget this. I was sleeping in the front room on the floor. And her brother, it was late in the night because we were sleeping. Tap me. Say, come in the room and come watch a movie with me. Come in the room and watch a movie with me. Keep in mind, this is a grown man. Come in and watch a movie with me. I said, I sleep in. And listen to me. I pull and say, no. And I guess because I was getting so loud, I woke her. And he just went in the room. So nobody was the wiser. Nobody knew. Well, he was trying to put me in the room. But did I tell? To this day, like I said, you'll be the first person I tell it. Why tell anybody anything when nothing is going to happen? Other friends came on to me. All of their other friends came on to me, other family members. And because no one did nothing to that first time, I said nothing to no one. Because I understand how some children can feel when girls run away. And you were saying, oh, they fast, they by man. I never understood that. Because they could be running away from an abusive situation. They could be running away from a family member, a daddy, a mommy. You don't know what they're going through. I never, ever, based on my experience, accepted that they're running away from man. Because you don't know someone's situation. You don't know if they were the ones who told something and nobody did nothing. So it's heart-wrenching when I hear she fast, she fresh, she does. Maybe she's running away and being fast and fresh because of what happened to her. So it's hard to hear when other girls are hurting. I think that's why I went into the profession of social work. Because I wanted to be that change, because what transpired with me and what happened with me, I wanted to be that voice of change. But listen to me, when I tell you that family members act like nothing is wrong and like their family members did nothing, to this day, what I say to you, to this day, if it's a funeral, it's a family function, he will even come to me and ask me how I doing. Like he don't recall. Listen to me, I was so upset at my Grammy's funeral, I started to tremble. I had them, my husband, let's go. Let's leave the receptor, I guess the repast, let's leave, because it brings back everything in me that would happen. And I think, I wouldn't say it'd be a total healing, but if he could admit what he did, and not even he would admit to people, He got to come to me and have a conversation with me and say, you know what, I'm sorry for what I did. And that might be closure within itself. But because of the type of person he is, listen to me, he is a pedophile. He has done to other people, and everybody acts oblivious. His name has even been mentioned in something on the island with a vagrant who called his name to say that he raped him. Listen to me, where there's fire, there's smoke. And I always tell people, my auntie asks me, and see, and even with that, if with my aunt, I wouldn't even, as a person, if it was me, I wouldn't even ask a child who was molested by someone what you think about that situation. That goes to show that they don't think. She said, "You think he did that to that man?" I said, "Oh well, he did it to me," and all her face dropped open. But you was a girl. He did it to me. I put nothing past him. He did it to me. It is hard when family members are not considerate of what you went through. Don't believe you. I am 35. I have no reason to lie. Why am I still saying what I'm saying now? And based on that, my relationship with my family is not a good one. Some of my family members is not a good one. So I say all this to say that please listen to your children. Please help them, even if it's at risk of you losing a relationship, losing friendships, losing past and stuff. But whatever the situation is, you will need to listen to your children. Listen to your children.
Um, I just want to say I'm so sorry to hear about your ordeal. No child, no teen, no woman should ever experience that. No one should ever experience that. And it's so sad to hear that even when you found the guts to speak up about it, you were shunned. And he's still being invited over to family functions, which means more than likely it's continuing because no one is stopping it. And I just want to tell you that, I know it took a lot for you to come on this show today, but I'm sure the men and women, because you do have men who would have gone through that, this is like the beginning of healing for them, and even the beginning of healing for you, because it's, breaking that chain that has been holding you down. There are so many persons trying to find their voice because it has been hidden, and even like you mentioned, the family members are making you out to be the problem, or, they're making you out to be basically the abuser when you were actually the victim, and all of this, you were a child. So it is my prayer that you receive healing from all of this, and everyone listening receives healing, those who would have gone through it, that things get better for them, because you definitely don't want to continue the cycle. You definitely do not want that cycle to continue. Just to hear from Miss Christie, do you have anything to say about all of that? I'm sorry, were you talking? Yeah.
Yes, I was saying, based on what transpired, you try to shield your children from what happened to you. You become overprotective in essence, and you try to, I guess, hold them tight to prevent them from feeling any kind of feeling that you felt.
And that in turn can be so frustrating because as a child, they don't understand why. They just like, mommy just won't let me do anything. She don't want me to have fun. So that even could then in turn put a strain on that parent-child relationship too. So it's so important to believe kids when it happens so that the next generation, is a little bit smoother. Because I could only imagine as a kid, that's not something you openly share with them. So it's just like, oh, why you just won't let me be great? And not realizing I'm just trying to protect you. That's all my love. But thank you so much for sharing your story. That was very, oh man, it was very heartbreaking to know that it it was so repetitive that it became like a theme in your life, and at least at that portion of your life, and then to have to feel that the relationship with the person who violated you was more important than your safety and well-being. But I'm so happy that you're able to share your story and that you're able to turn your pain into healing, not just for yourself, but for others too. So I commend you for the work that you're doing, especially within social services. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, it took a whole lot of strength. I'm sure you mustered a whole lot of strength. Your test is your testimony. And I'm pretty sure, just to ask, would you all be okay if anyone after the show wanted to reach out to one of you? Is that okay? That they can reach out maybe to speak with you one-on-one about, whatever it is that they may have experienced, just maybe to find that strength or, that support that they were looking for?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, wonderful. Alrighty, anyone have anything they wanted to add before we close out?
Okay, well, I'm sitting here in solidarity with my wife, and I was also exposed to abuse, both um, sexual and physical. Um, as a matter of fact, I've suppressed it for many years, and my wife was actually the first individual that I told about the abuse, and I told her about 5 years into our marriage. We were together for 11 years. We were married for 8. And she was the very first person that I ever told. But like she said, the physical abuse was happening before the sexual. So when the sexual abuse happened, it just felt like, what's the sense of disclosing this? What's the sense of telling anybody that this is happening to me? So I just spent a lot of time, a lot of years just suppressing it. But to be honest, it really spilled into other aspects of my life, especially when it came to dating. It was very difficult to open up. When I was at liberty to discover and do things sexually as an adult, certain aspects of sex still made me uncomfortable. So it was, and it's still traumatizing, and it still lingers. And my the individual that violated me has passed away recently, but um, I am still in a place where I don't have any resolve for it. So it's just more or less that I'm just living with what happened day by day, and realistically, it is something that I will never forget, and I don't think I will ever be able to recover from or get over. It will just be something that I'll just have to be able to live with.
Oh, my heart goes out to both of you. You know, and it's so sad hearing about it. You know, you finally found the strength and, you know, the words to express what it is that you experienced. You know, after such a long time, it's still affecting you. And people, you know, they don't realize the severity that these things have even into a child's adulthood. This isn't something that just vanishes, you know, and this is why it is so important for family members to stop covering up, friends to stop covering up, because while you don't want to lose a relationship, it's basically killing that person until they finally find the strength to get up or pick themselves up.
Strangely, most family members tell you you have to learn how to forgive and forget, as though they were the victim of abuse, and that is crazy to me. How can you tell me how to feel? How can you tell me how to react? How can you tell me how to be?
Especially being a child, especially being a child coming to an adult for help.
And it's so interesting that you said, you know, family wants you to forgive and forget, because that's exactly what it is. And unfortunately, this is a situation that it's the exact opposite, because trauma lives in the body. Trauma lives in the brain. It impacts a child's ability to even develop necessary coping skills. It actually interferes with the proper development of a child, even on a neurological level, a cognitive level. So literally, it is the exact opposite of being able to forgive and forget, because they don't even have the capacity to do that. And even if they wanted to, they cannot. That repression lives within your body in other ways and manifests in other ways. And the way we just continue to say, bury it, bury it, bury it, is such a disservice to a person on a cellular level, on a soul level. How can you tell them, forget about what happened to you? It wasn't important. It's over now. It's in the past now. When that is stored within your body every single day, and you have to make a choice every day to not succumb to what has happened.
Yes, so to be subjected to something that is so significant, you know, as a prepubescent individual, to process something for many years, it's very traumatic. You know, it's a lot to process as a child.
Definitely.
And you have some adults who find situations like that type of traumatic experience extremely difficult. So imagine a child who's only just trying to understand life and love and hurt and their feelings and everything else.
Right.
We as a society, we have to be those kids' voices. We really have to be their voices. We have to,
you know, you mentioned society, and it just brought me to the fact that even if we want to be the change that we know our country, our future generations need, we need our Bahamian laws to get to the times as well. Because like Mrs. Martin said, it's very hard to even prove sexual abuse in the Bahamas unless there is DNA evidence there. There's nothing that we can really do about it. Of all of the children that I work with that have been sexually abused, I can say, and mind you, I would have worked in social services for about 4 years before I went private. And all the children that I've seen there and in private practice, as well as in my current placement, I can count on one hand the number of men that have been prosecuted for the sexual abuse that the children have received. I can count on one hand for all out of all of the children that I have encountered in my field so far. And it is devastating to know. So therefore, it's children who are so easy to abuse because it's so hard to prove it. And so a child who has to perform oral sex on a man, what type of proof is going to be there for the prosecution later? Nothing. As far as they're concerned, you see that child and there's nothing wrong. There's no physical evidence of trauma anywhere. Yet you have this child performing sex acts, being traumatized every single day. And we have no way to protect them, even from the legal standpoint.
It becomes he say, she say in that sense. Because what about the men or women who physically touch you down there? There's no evidence of that.
Nothing.
So in most families said, okay, I can't prove it, so let's leave it alone. But like I said, my thing is, I prefer to call the police, let the chips fall where they may, and at least that child would know we tried.
Right.
And that can be a difference between someone committing suicide or becoming productive. There's only one thin line from sanity, and me or my husband could have gone any which way, but it depends on the person, and we have to understand that persons are not alike, and trying to help each and every child is what should be paramount.
You're so right. You are so right. The children should come first.
Yes.
Children should come first because they are our future. And we are their only voices. You know, and even after listening to all that y'all said, you know, about not even being able to prove it sometimes, and it's even more alarming because now you really don't want your child around anyone because you just don't know. You really just do not know. But I totally agree with you, Miss Christie. There has to be more done. Our laws need to be stiffened. There needs to be changes because a little slap on the wrist that persons do get when they are finally convicted, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. This whole topic is just so, you know, it's so depressing, but at the same time, it's so needed. It's timely because of all that you see happening, you know, and it's like it's getting worse and worse. And all you really can do is teach your kids, because a child shouldn't have to go to a Sunday school camp or a church camp or to another child or neighbor or whomever to find out about good or bad touch. These are conversations that should happen. You know, and we have to listen to our children.
And based on that, we teach our children good touch, bad touch from they barely could walk. You understand? Because we don't want them to have the same experience that we have. Because my thing is, if someone told me what it was, it might not have prevented it, but I would have known to be able to tell right then and there. I did not know until summer school. You understand? So education is so important. Teaching the children, for based on their age group of what is important, good touch and what is bad touch. And who, like you said, Dr. Chrissy, who should bathe them, who's trustworthy. That is so important. Our society, we really don't talk to our children. We don't talk to our children. We talk at them, but we don't talk with them. And that even that needs to change. We based on everything that's transpired, we have allowed our children to talk. Even if it seems to be disrespectful, we could rein them in, but we don't want them not to say anything. And they can say anything to us. And I think it goes to show based on our parenting, I guess our upbringing, how we try to do the opposite of what happened to us. And that's where we are in our parenting.
Yeah, and it's working.
Yeah. Our children can tell us any and everything. So even that needs to change in our society where children feel safe enough to say what is going on, safe enough to say, well, this person said something to me inappropriately, this person did something inappropriate, that having that safe ground to know that the parents will do what is right by them.
It will be proactive.
It's something that needs to be happening in our families, and stop allowing the victim to feel worse, feel downtrodden, to feel that they are the problem.
And allow the perpetrator to walk around so freely. The perpetrator should be the one to be able to bear that shame and that guilt, not the victim.
Yes. And also there shouldn't be a time frame, because you hear it a lot too. Oh, but why did she wait so long? Or why did he wait so long? There shouldn't be a time. That child may have just realized after years passed that they were actually violated.
Absolutely.
Especially if they weren't having that conversation, or they may have just mustered the strength to even communicate all of that.
Yeah,
That's true.
but our culture is really distorted because I've witnessed instances as well where we would have events or whatnot, and I would watch family members get shunned because of their sexual preference. But known perpetrators and pedophiles would be allowed to roam around freely, and that is just so awkward to me.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very valid point that you brought up, because we care more about who you lie with behind closed doors than the violation of an innocent person. And that is insane to me. And not even just in our families, even in our friendship circles, because I always tell people, I said, if you have a homeboy that you're all in your 20s, your 30s, and they're actively looking to pick up schoolgirls, that's not someone you need to be associated with. You need to check your friend. You need to say something about that, because you find people condone it in so many different social groups in that we interact with, and nobody says anything.
Yep, the sugar daddy. It seems like a joke, but you're right. It's a problem. It's a serious problem. There's so much that, we really need to pay attention to in the society. So much now, even more so, because it's like they are becoming smarter on how they move. They're learning the ways to stay hidden for so much longer. And the children, like Ms. Martin would have mentioned, they are being called fresh, and they're being the ones looked at as the problem, when this is what they're being introduced to, when they should be playing with their Barbie dolls or watching SpongeBob. They are being forced to perform sexual favors or sexual acts. And a child cannot consent to sex. I don't care how fresh that child is, or how forward that child is, or womanish or mannish, whatever they want to call it. A child cannot consent.
I think that's another reason why I don't call women, in particular, women or men, but women, because we talk more about women, women bad. When you become an adult and you just doing what you want to do with sexually with any and everybody, I tend not to call them bad, because I don't know what you've been through. You don't know what hurt someone is going through. You don't know how they are coding or covering what happened to them as a child or maybe in adulthood, because adults also feel get some form of abuse as well as adults. So I tend not to call women bad, oh she bad. Oh she just loose. You don't know why she's that way. Let's start the conversation. What is going on with her? What's transpired? What happened to make you this way? And that's where we need to be as a society. We need to try help our brothers and sisters and find out what is going on. Maybe even the conversation can help someone. You can say, let me, it could be between me and you. Let's talk. You okay? You need someone to talk to. What is going on with you? And a talk can change from someone stop doing what they're doing, or killing themselves. You just don't know. So we need to stop being so judgmental as a society, because we don't know what someone is going through. I get majority of my friends and family can't even tell you this happened to me. You understand? You don't know what someone is going through. So I tend not to pass judgment, so to speak. And we need to be like that as a society. Be our brother's keeper. We talk it, but we preach it, but we don't really do it. We see people walking on the side of the road. You see this person, you don't know what happened to people. So you need to treat everybody as human beings. We don't know.
So true. That is so true. You don't know what anyone is going through, so you be nice to them. A simple hi, how are you? That goes a long way. A very, very long way. I think we are, just before we wrap up, if there is one nugget or one word of advice, one word of encouragement, what would each of you leave with the person listening this evening?
I would say, believe your children. No matter who the person is, no matter what you think, believe them. And that's my nugget. Believe your children. It can help them a long way.
Yeah, and I'll just like to expand upon that. But my whole thing in regards to parenting, I always try to find the why, because us as a society as well, it's always, you have to know your place as a child, stay in the child's place, stuff like that. But I notice I always get a better reaction, a better response from my kids when I simply ask why. If they have a breakdown or they're crying, or they want to communicate, or if they do something, I always try to find out the why. And so usually it's very, very enlightening, the response that I get from them. So yeah, always ask why. Don't just assume or jump to conclusions.
I think that was, those nuggets would be nuggets that I would say too. I guess I'm going to speak then to those who might be going through it. There's always hope and there's always help. And sometimes that help is outside of your family, but it's there. And we're here to help. As long as you reach out, we're there for you.
All righty, thank you all so much for sharing your experiences, sharing your expertise. I'm sure everyone listening was thoroughly enlightened. We were informed. So, anyone who may have had questions, I think that this whole conversation answered a whole lot of those questions, because I even learned a lot just listening this evening, and even being a parent, I got some pointers from listening to you all on, how I can be a better parent. So I am truly grateful to have had the opportunity to speak with all of you this evening. I just want to send a heartfelt thank you so much for taking the time out, because you don't know or realize the difference that you would have made in someone's life. Them just listening and realizing that their situation isn't isolated. Because one thing that I've realized, even through my own personal experience and also listening to other persons, often when you are going through a traumatic experience or some form of disappointment or anything bad that would have happened, you oftentimes think that this is only isolated to you. Only you went through this, no one else is going through it, and there's no way out. But it's so good to see and hear from you all, so that persons listening, they would know that there is a way out, there is another way, there is hope, and they are not to be the blame, regardless of, who is trying to blame them. They are not at fault. So I just want to, say thank you so much, so much for all that you would have shared. Thank you for your journey. Thank you for remaining strong. Thank you for staying encouraged, because we all need that encouragement sometimes. And, just know that there are more persons rooting for you than rooting against you. And those who are listening, know that you always have someone out there for you. There's always a support. There's always someone who is going to believe you, regardless if your mommy, your daddy, auntie, uncle, whoever doesn't believe you. There's always going to be someone out there who believes you and who is going to help you. So do not be discouraged. Do not give up hope. Stand strong. This is only a test, and you will have a testimony. Your trials will bring you triumph. So everyone, I just want to thank you. Thank you again. Thank you to those who are listening. Stay tuned for so much more. Feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to my channel. If you need to reach out to Miss Christie or Mrs. or Mr. Martin, please feel free to reach out and let me know, and I will give you their contact so that they will be able to help you through your journey. All righty, everyone. Thank you so much and be blessed.